on my wedding day. My parents boycotted it to teach me humility.
My name is Ariana Collins. I'm 28 years old. But by the end of that night, they were the ones begging for mercy. Let me tell you what really happened. I grew up in a house where love was conditional. Not in obvious ways, not with shouting or violence. It was quieter than that. Approval was currency. Silence was punishment. My father built a real estate empire from nothing. That's the story he told the world. Self-made, ruthless, respected. My mother built a reputation. Charity galas, magazine features, the perfect smile beside the perfect husband. And me? I was the investment. The daughter who would marry strategically, expand the network, strengthen the brand. Love was never part of the business plan. I didn't realize that until I met Daniel. Daniel didn't own buildings. He exposed the people who did. He was an investigative journalist, smart, observant, calm in ways that made powerful people uncomfortable, including my father. The first time Daniel came to dinner, my father didn't ask about his goals. He asked about his access. Investigative work? He said slowly. You must dig into a lot of private matters. Daniel smiled politely. Only the ones that affect the public. The tension was instant. My mother barely touched her wine. After Daniel left, my father said something that stuck with me. Men who search for dirt usually end up buried in it. I should have heard the warning, but I was in love. When Daniel proposed, it wasn't grand. It was simple. He knelt in my tiny apartment kitchen while pasta boiled over behind him. He held out a ring that was modest but chosen with care. I can't offer you power, he said, but I can offer you honesty. I said yes before he finished. That was the moment I unknowingly chose sides. When I told my parents, they didn't explode. They calculated. My mother invited me over for tea the next afternoon. She didn't hug me. She didn't congratulate me. She poured tea slowly and said, "Are you certain you want to limit your future like this?" Limit? I asked. You were raised to rise, she replied softly, not to settle. Settle. That word burned. I told her I loved him. She gave me that smile, the one she used at charity events when she pretended to care. Love fades. Status doesn't. I told her the wedding would be small. She nodded. Of course it will. I didn't understand the tone until a week later. Cancellations started rolling in. My aunt suddenly couldn't travel. My cousin claimed she had a conflict. Family friends stopped responding to invitations. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then I overheard my father on the phone. If you attend, don't expect future cooperation. It wasn't just a boycott. It was a warning shot to anyone who valued his influence. When I confronted them, my father didn't deny it. If you insist on humiliating this family, he said calmly, we will not participate. Humiliating? I asked. You are choosing beneath your upbringing. My mother added, sometimes a child needs to learn humility the hard way. That's when it hit me. They wanted me walking down an aisle lined with empty chairs. They wanted me embarrassed. They wanted me crawling back. And for a moment, it worked. I cried in Daniel's arms that night. What if they're right? I whispered. He held my face gently. Right about what? That I'm throwing everything away. He looked at me in a way no one ever had, not evaluating, not measuring. You're not throwing anything away, he said. You're choosing yourself. But Daniel had been quieter than usual, focused, distracted. 3 days before the wedding, he came home late with a folder in his hand. His expression wasn't anxious, it was resolved. Do you trust me? He asked. With everything, I said. He sat across from me and opened the folder. Inside were financial records, property transfers, charitable donations that didn't align with reported numbers. My mother's foundation name appeared repeatedly. So did my father's development firm. I stared at the documents, trying to understand. I've been working on a corruption investigation for months, Daniel said carefully. City permits, fast-tracked zoning approvals, funds routed through shell charities. My stomach tightened. And? He met my eyes. Your parents' companies keep showing up. The room felt smaller. No, I whispered. I didn't know at first, he continued. But once I connected the names, I couldn't ignore it. Suddenly everything made sense. The hostility, the pressure, the boycott. It wasn't about Daniel's income. It was about Daniel's access. If he married into the family, he'd be close. Close enough to see. Close enough to verify. Close enough to publish. They're scared, Daniel said quietly. I felt something shift inside me. Not heartbreak, clarity. The night before the wedding, my father called. His voice wasn't angry, it was controlled. You still have time to reconsider, he said. I'm getting married tomorrow. There was a pause. Call it off, he said. We'll forget this foolishness ever happened. And Daniel? Silence. Then, coldly, he's digging into matters that don't concern him. So they knew. My hands stopped shaking. You mean matters that don't concern me either? I asked. You don't understand how the world works, he replied sharply. Some structures collapse if examined too closely. I almost laughed. Maybe they deserve to. He hung up on me. On my wedding day, 40 chairs were empty. Daniel's family filled the front rows. His mother hugged me tightly. We show up, she whispered. The ceremony was intimate, real. No orchestra, no press, no dramatic display. Just vows spoken without strategy. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. At the reception, just as dinner was being served, Daniel stood up. He tapped his glass gently. I want to thank everyone who chose to be here, he began. His tone was calm, measured. Then he connected his phone to the venue's projector. A headline draft appeared on the screen, unpublished, but complete. It outlined a developing investigation into misuse of charitable funds and zoning manipulation tied to prominent city developers. My father's company name was listed. So was my mother's foundation. Gasps filled the room. Daniel didn't smirk. He didn't dramatize. He spoke like a journalist. Transparency matters, he said, especially when influence is used to silence. He looked at me briefly. I will never protect corruption. Not for power, not for comfort, not even for family. My phone started vibrating immediately. Call after call, text after text. My mother's name flashing repeatedly. The tone had changed. From superiority to panic. You don't know what you're doing. This will destroy us. Stop him. But I didn't. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their approval. I wasn't afraid of their silence. Because now I knew something they didn't expect me to know. Their empire wasn't built on strength. It was built on secrecy. And secrecy collapses under light. By the end of the reception, the boycott didn't matter. The empty chairs didn't matter. The humiliation they planned for me? It never arrived. Instead, fear arrived at their door. And this was only the beginning. Because they thought skipping my wedding would teach me humility, they forgot something important. I learned resilience from watching them, and I learned truth from marrying him. The morning after my wedding, I woke up married and disowned. My phone had 47 missed calls. Not congratulations, damage control. My mother left a voicemail at 2:14 a.m. Her voice was shaking. Ariana, this has gone too far. Call Daniel. Tell him to stop. We can fix this. Fix this. That's what they called it when problems disappeared quietly. But this time, the problem wasn't quiet. It was documented. Daniel was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open. He didn't look nervous. He looked steady. They're contacting people, he said calmly. Editors, sponsors, mutual connections. To stop the article? To discredit it. I sat across from him. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting as their daughter. I was thinking like an adult who finally saw the whole board. What happens next? I asked. He turned the screen toward me. The article wasn't live yet, but it was locked in, scheduled, backed up, shared with legal. Once it publishes, he said quietly, there's no controlling it. My chest tightened, not from fear, from realization. They had tried to control every narrative my entire life, and now they couldn't control this one. At 9:07 a.m., my father showed up at our apartment. He didn't knock politely. He pounded. Daniel opened the door before I could move. My father walked in like he still owned the space. He looked older, not weaker, just pressured. You've made your point, he said to Daniel. Pull it. Daniel didn't raise his voice. It hasn't published yet. Then social accurate. It's you have no idea what kind of enemies you create by releasing something like this. Daniel didn't blink. The kind who shouldn't be in power? The room felt electric. My father turned to me. You're going to let him do this? That question would have broken me a week ago. Now, it clarified everything. Are the documents real? I asked him. He didn't answer. Are the transfers real? Silence. My mother had always been better at emotional manipulation. My father relied on authority. But authority collapses when facts stand. This is bigger than you are every taking, he said finally. No, I replied softly. It's exactly what I understand. He tried a different approach. If this goes public, we leakracy. I tilted my head. Everything, or the illusion of everything? That was the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Not anger, fear. Because he knew something I now knew too. Daniel wasn't bluffing, and neither was I. You're my daughter, he said, voice lowering. That line used to feel warm. Now it felt strategic. Then why didn't you show up? I asked quietly. Silence again. He had no answer. Because boycotting my wedding wasn't about teaching humility. It was about intimidation. And intimidation only works when someone is afraid. I'm not stopping him, I said. My father stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. Then he said something that confirmed everything. You think he found everything? The question slipped out before he could stop it. Daniel and I exchanged a glance. Found everything. So there was more. My father realized his mistake instantly. He straightened his jacket. If this is published, he said coldly, you are no longer part of this family. The words hung in the air. Final, calculated, designed to wound. But something unexpected happened. I didn't feel wounded. I felt released. Then I guess I'm free, I replied. He left without another word. The door closed, and for a moment the apartment was silent. Then Daniel exhaled slowly. That confirmed it, he said. There's more, I whispered. He nodded. I think the charity is just the surface. That afternoon the article went live. No dramatic countdown, no warning, just a notification. Published. Within minutes it spread. Shares, comments, local news outlets picking it up. The headline was precise, professional, supported by evidence. There was no slander, no exaggeration, just facts. And facts are louder than anger. My mother called again. This time she was crying, real crying. You don't understand what this will do, she said. I understand exactly, I answered calmly. We protected you, she insisted. Everything we did was for you. By stealing? A sharp inhale on the other end. We didn't steal. Then what do you call redirecting charity funds into shell accounts? She didn't respond. Instead, she shifted tactics. You'll never recover from this socially. There it was, the real fear. Reputation. Not prison, not legal trouble. Reputation. You taught me something important, I said quietly. What? That people who only love you in public don't love you at all. She hung up. By evening, investigators had contacted Daniel, not to threaten, to request documentation. The article triggered official review. Audits, permits being re-examined, board members distancing themselves, family friends who skipped my wedding suddenly texting. We had no idea. Of course they didn't, because silence protects power. Until someone refuses to stay silent. That night, Daniel sat beside me on the couch. You okay? He asked. I expected to feel grief, loss. Instead, I felt steady. They thought humiliation would make me crawl back, I said. And? I think it made me stand up. He smiled gently. You were always standing. The next morning, news vans were outside my parents' house. Not for celebration, for questions. The same cameras my mother used to pose for. Now waiting for statements. My father released a public response, short, dismissive, claiming misinterpretation. But he didn't deny the transactions. He couldn't, because they existed. And more were being uncovered. 2 days later, a second article dropped. Additional findings, additional shell companies. The investigation widened. And that's when my father called again. No anger this time, just exhaustion. What do you want? He asked. The question stunned me. Want? For years, they told me what I should want. Now he was asking me. I wanted parents who showed up, I said quietly. Silence. I wanted honesty, I continued, not perfection. He didn't respond, because honesty would have required confession, and confession would mean surrender. You've destroyed us, he said finally. No, I replied. The truth did. And then I did something I never thought I could do. I ended the call. Not dramatically, not angrily, just calmly. Because closure doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it comes with quiet certainty. The world they built was shaking, boards resigning, accounts frozen pending review, social invitations disappearing. The same isolation they tried to force on me, now circling back to them. And the strangest part? I didn't feel revenge. I felt balance. They tried to teach me humility by stripping away support. Instead, they exposed their own fragility. And it wasn't over yet. Because investigations don't stop at headlines. They dig deeper. And if my father was right, if Daniel hadn't found everything, then what comes next won't just damage their reputation. It might take everything else too. And this time, there's no empty chair waiting for me. Only the truth waiting for them.